Welcome back to the home of YouTube's best four-wheel driving channel, where it's all about four-wheel driving action and adventure.
All the time, all week, every day, every single minute, four-wheel driving.
How spectacular is that, mate? Now, we got a huge episode for you all today. It's gonna be massive. We are all about, cheers, mate, cheers.
Still beer on the car, dude.
We are all about four-wheel drive, aren't we, Martin? We're all about four-wheel drive, aren't we, Martin?
Well, there's two of us who are about eight-wheel drive, mate.
And all-wheel drive.
And all motion, full motion.
We're all about the quattro.
We're all about the all-poor action.
Our favourite thing is half an octa drive.
No, there's two of us. It's a full octa drive.
Is it?
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than a penta-drive system with one wheel not connected. You know what I'm saying?
Nothing like full driving your full drive through the city streets. Daily driving that thing to the shop and never going bush.
If you have covered your four-wheel drive in a bunch of useless shit so you can drive down to the shops, and now you've realised, like me, that your car's too heavy, you need more power.
What?
Or you could just remove all the shit you're not using. No, you need more power, and today we're doing a budget power upgrade on this Jimny. Come with us, Martin. It's gonna be spectacular.
It's actually not that bad.
How good is this?
It's not that bad.
Really, how good is this?
Oh, no, it's bad. Just as bad as before.
Welcome to another episode of the best four-wheel driving channel on YouTube. There's a few of them out there. None of them are as good as this. How are you going, mate?
All right, I'll be better when I've had a chance to go pick up my oat latte in my off-roading vehicle from my inner city cafe of choice.
Oh, you're going to get a goat latte.
Oat latte.
Goat with goat milk. It's the new thing.
No.
There's extra enzyme of goat in there. Now, you might have seen our adventure that we did off-road called Key to the Mountain in the Jimny and the little turbo truck. It was an amazing adventure. The only problem was this thing here with its 1.3 litre engine just didn't make enough power. Now, Martin, you fixed your power issue recently, didn't you, with your truck?
Yeah, I may have fixed it, hopefully.
What'd you do, Martin?
We'll find out. I turboed it.
That's right. He turboed it. So that's exactly what I'm not going to do. This here is a 1.3 litre engine that makes around about 78 horsepower. What I've bought over here off the internet is a motor from a Suzuki Swift. This here is a 1.5 litre engine that comes in lots of Suzuki, and can you rip that off for me please, Martin? This here is going to be a direct swap bolt-on, and he's going to take us up to around 100 horsepower. Now this engine costs about $700
cheap.
Off
cheap,
eBay.
Man.
So for that power increase as a percentage, absolutely huge for the numbers. Now the engine, from what I understand, is the same, Martin. It's just got a longer stroke, but the rest of it's kind of the same. We're going to pull that out. We're going to put that in, more power.
You scored, dude.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, everyone loves a freebie. Look at that.
That's awesome.
So, Martin, that's the plan. That motor in there, more power, more off-road action.
Long stroke, big block in the mud box.
Correct. We've got our special guest here to help us again. He's our favourite hyper-chode. It's Isaac. All right, so Isaac helped us with the build of this car last time, but now it's going to be a bit more of a substantial build. Isaac, what is required in getting this Suzuki Swift engine happening in our Jimny? Let me just say before we start that a 1.5 litre brings it up, even though it's a different engine, this brings us up to the kind of similar specs as the new Jimny, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's at least the same size. They're 1.5, bit of a different motor. They're not the M series, but basically we're going to be the same displacement.
Legit, someone's underpants.
Wow,
man.
that's a bit sketch.
Anyway, so what do we got to do?
The motor is pretty much, the bare motor is pretty much the same as what's in the Jimny at the moment. Just everything that's attached to this motor has to be changed over to the Jimny's accessories, if you will. So intake manifold, some of those pulleys, need to get rid of this flywheel and put the flex plate on for the auto. There's a couple of things with the oil filter we have to do because it points down, it'll hit the engine mount, so we've got to take that all off. You know, basically everything that's on that motor goes onto this motor, including the sump, the oil pickup, and then it just goes in. But as far as, controlling the motor, the ECU is essentially the same as the 1.5 litre. The injectors are the same size.
Right? Okay.
They're identical. So all we're adding is a longer stroke, picking up some kilowatts and some torque from it, but it's still within the scope of the original map that Suzuki had put into it.
So with all that said, it's time to get into it. The first step is to jack up your car and remove the 1.3 litre engine. Except in our case, we don't need to jack up the Jimny because it's already got a lift kit. We're going to drop all the fluids and then anything connected to the 1.3 litre is getting removed. We will be using some of these parts to transplant them though onto the new motor, so we're going to keep them to the side. Unlike the cars we're used to modifying where normally we're removing weight to make them perform better, a lot of four-wheel drive mods like bull bars and roof racks actually add weight, so that is why we need more power.
I actually have a thing that we should use, which is the new Mighty Car Mods official fender covers, which we never normally use because we're not professional. But check this out, Martin. Magnets inside.
Oh, look at that.
There we go. Now we're protected. That's awesome.
With our fender carefully protected, which will probably end up bashing through the bush anyway, we can continue removing the engine.
In the time that I've owned this Jimny, it really has been one of the most capable cars that I've ever driven. And off-road, it actually does feel like there is enough power. The problem is when you're back on the tar and you're going from one track to another. With the extra weight, plus when you've got an esky or a fridge in the back, in a 110 zone, I was lucky if I could get to 90 or even 100 kilometers an hour. So ideally what this engine swap will do is make traveling to the destinations even better with a little bit of extra poke once I'm in the mud.
Here are two of the accessory belts that came off the Jimny. Now they look very similar, but they are different. How they're similar is they're both 4PK, so they've got 4 of these ribs. As you can see, this one is kind of textbook cactus. And this is where people say, oh, it's always been serviced, but everyone's just sort of checked the belt or haven't and just gone, no, that looks fine. But these do have a life, like a lifespan, particularly if you're dunking the car in salt water and mud pits all the time. The other difference is on this one, you can see the number, which is a 4PK 835. This one you can't. So there's a possibility that they're the same, so we check that first. No, that one's obviously shorter. So that is 835 millimeters long. This belt is completely toast, we're not going to use it again. So how do you order another belt? You either ring up your parts store and go, I've got a 2012 Jimny, but if you want to be doubly and triply sure, you can also measure your belt, and you can chop it or not. You can use a bit of string. I just thought it'd be fun to chop it and be destructive. And just measure out the belt like that. And we can now work out that is a 4PK 955 or 996, there you go, 4PK 960. So jump on the blower and grab one of them and we'll have a brand new belt.
I just want to take a second to thank the sponsor of this build series, Shit Beer.
Driving four-wheel drives makes you very thirsty. So go and grab yourself an icy cold shit beer. All right, it's time to finish getting this engine out and then prep the new motor ready to go into the Jimny. Okay people, it is time to remove this pristine 1.3 litre engine with only 50,000 kilometres on the clock and replace it with whatever mystery box we bought off eBay.
All right, so we've disconnected everything from the engine. I've just taken off the engine mounts. Isaac is under the car at the moment, making sure there's nothing else attached. And now the little Jimny 1.3 litre can go
In the bin. I've been prepping the 1.5 from our Swift. Our Jimny engine's a little bit cleaner than the Swift one, but they're NA motors that have probably had a reasonably easy life, so it will be totally fine. Just got to transplant a bunch of stuff from this motor to that motor. We can't do it till the motor's out, so that's the next step.
After a lot of engine craning, pry bars, yelling and swearing, eventually the 1.3 litre engine is free.
How good's that, boys?
So good.
So much good.
I've never had to do this in my Range Rover Evoque. Hey, my Range Rover Evoque, I can basically just like go and buy as much coffee as I want, as many times a day as I want.
No one's falling for it, Martin.
What are you talking about?
No one's falling for the fact that you own a Range Rover Evoque or an RS4 or a Tesla or any of the other crap that you talk on this show.
What do you mean? That's how I get my coffees, man. You've got to get your single origin, kombucha-infused, bacteria-driven goat milk latte.
Stop it.
And you drive there in your Range Rover Evoque. Or your, I don't know, whatever you've got that's...
Or your big stroked Jimny.
with a giant big block in the
Awesome,
front of
there'll be a few big strokes going on in there, I reckon.
it. Dude, big block in the mud box. So Isaac, these engines look basically identical.
Yeah.
And we worked out before it's like different rods, different crank.
Yeah, that's right. So they're the same height. All they did was change the rod length and the crank, and as a result, the engine's cubic. So now it's like 78 by 78. So on paper,
Yeah.
the M15 is probably a better engine, you know, for higher revs and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It can sustain that longer and theoretically probably last longer.
This has
as well.
variable valve timing, so does this
Yes.
one, but the older ones didn't, right?
That's right.
Okay, so other differences are that's got a different water pump because it's rear-wheel drive.
Yep.
Different sump. You
Yep.
can see this one with a giant aluminium one. That's got like a classic pressed
Yep.
steel thing.
Yep.
And it's also, this is a front sump and that's a rear sump.
Yep.
What other differences can you see?
The only other thing is the oil filter mount. So this one is pointing oil filter down, and we actually need to move this thread off this block directly onto the M15A block, so the oil filter come out here. Because when you put that in the car, that just hits that engine mount.
Yeah, right.
So people reckon they've done it with a shorter filter, but why would you want a smaller filter? You might as well, you know, give it the biggest filter it can fit.
I mean, I have questions like, it obviously doesn't cost Suzuki any more to make this
No.
than that.
No.
So they put a 1.3 in this thing, and that's when it starts being all about emissions and sales markets and capacities, and
Yep.
it was always a 1.3. So it's just in a way, this is a miniaturized version of that
It is.
because there's more Swifts and Jimnys. You reckon?
That's right. Well, it probably costs more to have this out there. This is the only one that has an M13. Well, only vehicle has M13A in it. So.
Oh well, there'll be Suzuki and Jimny nerds out there that will know the reason why.
Oh,
but,
totally.
But this seems like this is my favourite kind of swap because you're just bolting factory stuff onto a factory motor and slap it in.
Absolutely. And the fact that the factory engine management will still run that motor fine
that's amazing.
makes it so cool. And I've heard of people going all the way up to the 1.8 litre motors and still running them with the factory ECU, which I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
I think that's just too much of a capacity
you can.
change. But proof's in the pudding. Same injectors,
Yep.
same sensors between the motors.
Yep.
They're managed same way, same compression ratio. There's really not a hell of a lot we're gaining other than some stroke. Which
I
gives
reckon
us
this
the
has had
torque.
an easier life than this.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it matters for a little small capacity NA
Yeah.
Revy thing anyway.
Totally.
So we're going to use as much good gear off this as we can
Yeah.
and junk anything that looks a bit old and oily.
Although internally the two engines are more or less the same, there's some stuff that Suzuki bolted on the outside of it that suits either the Jimny or the Swift. Being that the Jimny is a north-south configuration, it needs the coolant in and out pointed in different directions to the transverse mounted Swift. Luckily they made it easy for us in that all you have to do is remove some engine mount studs and swap the coolant thermostat piping and you're good to go. It's way easier to have the engines next to each other on stands so you don't lose track of what bolts go where. Also keep an eye out for anything that requires a new layer of sealant. We're also swapping the main pulley to suit the Jimny accessories and belts. And finally the sump and pickup is being swapped over, and all this will need a nice clean layer of sealant to prevent a Jimny sized oil slick up the road.
transferring everything from that to that. About to take the sump off, but a courier just brought this.
Mad progress.
And I don't know if it's Jimny related.
Oh, dude.
Yes.
HP. It's like they knew. It's like
That's great.
It's like Turbo Edition. So this.
Oh, right angle.
Yes.
Let's hope we don't need that.
Look, look.
Look at this.
Dude, that's mad. I've already made it dirty the first 2 minutes that we owned it.
Oh,
Oh, look at it.
look at it.
Freaking massive. You have a battery.
Oh, dude, feel the oomph of it. Fire out, look at that.
That's mad. Let's try it on this.
Let's just use it
I want to
immediately.
try it on this immediately.
Oh.
Sick.
RYOBI's HP range are basically a more powerful version of the tools with more battery runtime and longer motor life. We've been using RYOBI tools for years, so it's awesome now to have a more powerful option. And yes, you may have noticed, the inside of this engine is absolutely disgusting.
All right, so we've got the sump off our 1.5 and we've flipped it over. It's very clear that this has not been nearly as loved as our 1.3, which was sort of slowly noticing. It's just, this is what happens when you don't change your oil often enough. It just goes a bit sludgy and stuff. At this point, can you ring up your records and say, give us another one? You could, but this came from interstate, so it would take ages and slow us down. That is why, service your vehicles, people. Also, particularly service your vehicle if you think your vehicle's engine might end up in someone else's car that's doing skids.
This filthy 1.5 litre engine is about to get the nice clean sump and pickup from our 1.3 litre. Having the engine side by side makes it really easy to swap over all the different parts that we need.
It's always a good feeling when you're swapping something on your car, when you're going from something really old and crusty like this to something beautiful, clean and new like this. Except we're not. This is the engine that we pulled out that's going
In the bin!
and this is the one that's going in.
Removing the rocker cover of the 1.3 litre engine reveals a beautifully maintained, nice and clean engine. Meanwhile, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to find underneath the rocker cover of our eBay engine. Surprise, surprise, it is absolutely disgusting. It looks like a chocolate cake's exploded inside it, and I'm starting to question my life choices. But it's not all about looks, of course, it's all about the power. So this conversion is continuing full steam ahead as Marty slazzes up the new sump to go on the 1.5.
All right, I have slazzed up this sump ready to go back on with some black slaz. Not quite as much as was on there before.
And it's also become evident that our eBay engine is in much more dire cleanliness than the one we're taking out. But it's not about that. It's about the displacement.
It is.
Because there's no replacement.
Yeah,
I don't
especially
think
when
anyone
it's-
ever says that about a 1.5 litre.
I don't think they either. But it is big block and it's like your option is to either go and get another one, which might also be as dirty, but it is just like, it's just glaze and stuff.
Yeah.
It still doesn't have 500,000 Ks on it, which is where you'd start to get worried.
I
It'll
mean,
be fine. It's gonna be fine.
are we sure it doesn't?
Plus, we're gonna change the oil on this one. So
Which
we'll
is
be
what the
fine.
previous owner never did.
That's right.
What a treat.
This is hard to hold.
So once that goes on, we're also swapping over the rocker cover as well because that changes where the dipstick goes. That's right. Something like that. So, Martin, that's pretty good. That's great. Let's start finger doodling some of these in, I reckon. It's looking good, mate.
Fingers crossed.
Sweet.
Our new rear sump is firmly attached to the new block, and now we can flip the engine over and install our rocker cover gasket. Sometimes these can go again, but they're so cheap and readily available for this car, so a new one is cheap insurance against annoying leaks. Next, we're going to attach some of the cooling system lines, then bolt on the engine mounts.
The 1.5 litre engine came with a plastic intake manifold, so we're swapping that out for the metal one that came on the original Jimny engine. Next up, the water pump is getting installed, then Marty and Isaac are going to check over all the connections. Meanwhile, I'm jumping on the laptop so I can go to the Supercheap Auto website to order the stuff that we're going to need tomorrow, including the limited edition Mighty Car Mods Castrol Edge Oil, which is going to be running in our mad engine-swapped Jimny. It has been an absolutely epic day, and with all of our parts ordered and most of the components transplanted onto the 1.5 litre, this engine is almost ready to go into the car.
All right, it's been an epic day.
It has.
The other engine is out. This one here is mostly together, but there are a couple of things that we're missing, but we've ordered those. They're coming overnight parts from Japan.
Overnight parts from Penrith.
From Penrith, which is, I don't know, western suburbs of Sydney. And I've also just done a big order from Supercheap Auto, so lots of stuff is going to be coming from them tomorrow as well.
You should show them what you got wrapped up in that thing. Is that exciting? I'm a bit excited.
I'll show them tomorrow.
I'm going to show them tomorrow.
I'll show you next time. So thank you very much, everybody that's been hanging and hanging with the Jimny. And thank you for sticking around on the best four-wheel driving channel on the internet. We put a lot of effort in driving around the four-wheel drives. We're not interested in drift cars, K cars, motorbikes,
big power
sports
stuff,
cars,
drag racing, circuit racing,
LSs,
motorcarna.
It's all about the dirt, man. That's why.
Going slow and high.
That's
on the
why
dirt.
I've called this car the mud box.
Why have
It's
you called
all
it the mud
about
box?
getting down low and slow in the mud. That's what you and I are into. And when you and I ride the mud box together, we're always having a great time.
Tomorrow morning, when I get your iced oat milk, goat milk latte
don't
in my
do it.
Range Rover Evoque,
Don't do it.
that I'm going to bush bash through the city streets.
No.
What kind of coffee do you want me to get you?
I don't want any coffee. I don't
You
want
sure?
anything delivered in a Voc.
A latte?
Revoke. I don't want any of that.
What
I
about
drank goat's milk for the first 8 years of my life.
What about a double
No.
acai bowl
No. What?
with, what do they call acai? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Acai bowl?
Yeah.
A double acai bowl with
Acai bowl sounds like pink eye. It sounds.
Anyway, tomorrow we're going to put this engine in. That's what's going to happen.
And then, Martin, when that's in there and that's working, I will drive it.
On the mud, in your box.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Can I take this? And
Bye. Yeah.
drink it?